All right, everyone. Hi, my name is Nick Cap, and I am one of the biotechnology instructors here at Skyline College. And I want to introduce you one of our students who has gone on to great success, and she'll tell you about that. She'll also tell you where she came from. So this is a real easy way to do an introduction. But Arlyne is actually, I wouldn't say my best student, but she is definitely a very hardworking student. And, she's definitely the type of person who I would want making my medicines and go on from. She's actually made sandwiches and things like that for people on a food truck. She'll talk to you about that. But, she's really a student who, she'll talk about it, but, I think she had this idea. She didn't kind of know what biotech was. She kind of didn't know what she wanted to get into and stuff like that. And then, she learned about the program, and then she took it wholeheartedly. And she took some really hard classes, and she did really well. And she impressed some of my colleagues who, quite frankly, aren't impressed by very many people. And so it's really wonderful to have her come back and kind of talk to you. And all of you could be right where she is with a little bit of work. All right, so Arlyne, take it off.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Cap. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right. Are you guys able to see this here? All right. So like Dr. Cap said, my name is Arlyne. I'm a recent graduate from Skyline. I'm kind of just going to go over my life as a biomanufacturing student and kind of how I came to be where I am now. So just some background on me. This is me, little baby Arlyne. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. I have 2 older brothers. And I also have my sister-in-law. My oldest brother is married. But yeah, my brothers, they've always looked out for me. I think the bottom picture really encapsulates our relationship. They kind of always stood guard over me, made sure that I was always looked out for, and just really played that big brother role. So starting off with my parents, both of them are immigrants from the Philippines. My mom came here when she was about 5 years old, and my dad came here in his 20s. They both met at McDonald's, where my dad was the manager, and my mom was a worker there. This was in the 80s, and they just hit it off. A few years later, they had my oldest brother, Anthony. I'll talk a little bit more about my siblings in a little bit. But yeah, they had my oldest brother, and then 3 years later, they had my brother Brian. Both my parents, I would say, had very conservative Filipino parents, and with them having 2 kids already, my mom's parents more pushed them to get married. They were like, "How do you have 2 kids? You guys aren't even married." So one day they went to Vegas, got married in a Vegas chapel when my brothers were fairly young. I wasn't even in the picture yet, not even a thought. Um, So these are my 2 brothers. They basically raised me. My parents worked a lot. My mom worked a 9 to 5 office job for the most part of my childhood. Um, and unfortunately, like a lot of relationships nowadays, my parents ended up getting divorced when I was 9. But it kind of worked out because around the same age, my sister-in-law came into my life. Her name's Nicole. My oldest brother is now married to her, but at the time that was just his girlfriend. And being raised in a house with just guys, I didn't really have anyone to go to with like my puberty questions, my girl questions, my boy problems, whatever it may be. And my sister Nicole was really just always there for me. She's basically known me my whole life, and it was really easy welcoming her into my family. Um, my siblings, they just always made sure that the opportunities were accessible to me. They made sure to push me to work hard because they didn't have these opportunities. They started working at really young ages, and they really just made sure that I was always taken care of. So elementary school, I went to school in a really small school in San Bruno called Full Elementary. My graduating class was about 20 students, very small. Um, Elementary school wasn't too crazy. It was a very laid back time. One thing we really did, we were very involved in the community. And one thing that was huge was we created our own water bottle. And we did not profit from these water bottles. all the sales went towards putting a water pump in a community in Africa. And eventually, we actually were able to raise money from our water bottle. The water bottle is called Water for Life. And we were able to install one of those pumps in a community in Africa. We got recognition from like a bunch of Bay Area newspapers. I'm kind of hidden in these pictures, but I'm there, I promise. That was, I was a 10-year-old kid. That's one big thing that we did to serve our community. Other than that, the only other thing that was like a highlight in elementary, I was president in 6th grade, which was really the foundation of my leadership skills. I didn't do much. There wasn't much responsibility as a 12-year-old kid. I led pledge every Friday and gave Friday announcements. That was kind of all I did as president, and I had the title. So for middle school, I went to school in South San Francisco called Altaloma Middle School. I was a transfer student. I came from San Bruno, so I was a new kid. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone there, but slowly I did make friends. Nothing too crazy in middle school. I will say though, a lot of the friends that I made in middle school, I'm still very close to till this day, and I love them dearly. They're a big part of the support system that I have throughout my adolescent and even adult life. So make sure you always keep those friends that are always there for you. So high school, I went to El Camino High School in South San Francisco. My freshman and sophomore year wasn't too major, nothing too crazy, very laid back. I would say high school was when I first heard about biotechnology, my very first introduction, and it was actually because of Genentech. Of course, being in South San Francisco, the quote unquote birthplace of biotechnology, Genentech was very involved in the schools there, and they actually helped pay for a portion of our science building that began construction my sophomore year. And my junior year, there's a really beautiful science building. And that was kind of the first time I heard about Genentech and what they did and biotechnology as a whole. I never heard of it before then, and I kind of looked into it a little bit more, and that's where I first heard about biotechnology. I was like, it's very interesting. Sounds like something maybe down the road I can get involved with, because I always knew I was going to be in the science field. At this time, like a typical Filipino person, I thought I was going to be a nurse. That's really what I was signing up for, leaning towards, but I knew at the end, if nursing didn't work out, I wanted to be somewhere in the science field. So again, my freshman and sophomore year, nothing crazy. I would say my junior year was when I started to evolve a little bit more. I ran for student body president, and that brings me to my junior year. I won my election, and I would say this solidified more of my leadership skills, my leadership, basically who I am as a leader. This is where it all kickstarted. I met a lot of really great people that are, again, still part of my support system till this day. I led seminars, workshops, I went to conferences, anything and everything I could do to expand myself as a leader, I did. And honestly, just being involved in my community again, I feel like that's just something that was always integrated into me as a person. And I was very happy to be giving back to my community once again, and this time serving as president for my entire class. Junior year was also when I took my first advanced placement class, which was advanced placement language and composition. And I loved it. I honestly really loved English, even as a science major. I just knew I didn't want to major in English when it came to college. I knew it was always science at the end of it. Along with taking on more academic responsibility, I got my first job at 17, along with my license, which is a lot of balancing and juggling things my junior year. I was really trying to polish up my resume to prep myself for college. So that brings me to senior year. Once again, I ran for president and I won my election. I was senior body president. I was really just very involved in my school. Basically my whole summer, I was at school prepping for the school year. Senior year, I was also in AP Literature and Composition, as well as AP Bio. I was really just trying to craft the ideal candidate for college, also just proving my family that, to be proud of me. I was really pushing myself to these limits. But I would say very early in my senior year, started to feel like something was missing. I was really struggling to stay focused in school, as well as just even go to school. It was really bad, but I started cutting school. I just felt like I didn't have a purpose. I was questioning a lot of myself and why I was feeling this way. I was just very empty. And eventually it led me to seek out answers. Um, and I enrolled myself in therapy. And my therapist eventually diagnosed me with clinical depression as well as anxiety at the young age of 17. And it stems from a lot of things. I won't go too far into details of that. If you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm very open with my experience. But basically, in October, I started therapy. And I was on a weekly basis. I would see my counselor. Um, and I had two psychiatrists who would help basically guide me through everything. And honestly, once I got diagnosis officially, it provided me some relief already because I knew that what I was feeling was valid. Um, and during this entire mess, I was also doing college applications. Again, like I said, I was a nursing major at this time, or at least that's what I thought I wanted to do. So I was applying to schools as a nursing major, and I applied to, I want to say like nine CSUs, and I'll get into acceptance in just a little bit, but I was applying to schools at this time during all of this. And then December came, and I actually decided to step down as senior body president, which took a lot of courage from me because I love leadership. It's a big part of who I am. Um, Even today, it's a huge portion of who I am and how I developed into the person that I am. So me stepping away from my responsibilities as president, very, very hard decision, but I don't regret any moment of it. I still was in the leadership class. I just took on a smaller role as a commissioner for special events, um, which allowed me to continue my leadership foundation and continue to build on that, just not as hands-on with my class. So college, out of the 8 or 9 or however many schools that I applied for, I got into two. I got into Sacramento State University as well as Cal State East Bay, both for pre-nursing. Um, and during my dark times, as much as I know my family supports me now, I was being a stupid, idiotic kid and I pushed my family away. And I thought college was my way to get away from my family. They were kind of suffocating. At least that's what I thought, as a 17-year-old kid. So I chose Sacramento State for nursing. And I went to my orientation that summer and I was literally sitting in my orientation. I still remember this moment so vividly. I was sitting in my orientation for nursing and they gave us these little green pens that said Sacramento State School of Nursing. And I was staring at this pen and I was like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Is this really what I see myself doing for my career? And that's when I first started to really question not the capability within myself, but whether or not I'm passionate about this career. But I told myself, I was like, Arlyne, you're currently in your orientation. You just registered for classes. You have a set move-in date. You are waist deep in this, and your family is so proud of you. Can you imagine what it would be like if you quit right now? So I chose to stick with it. I eventually moved to Sacramento State, and I had an amazing roommate. It was great. And I would say maybe a month or two into my first semester, I found out that financial aid did not cover my dorm. So I was left with like a $3,000 bill that my family could not afford. And I eventually had to move out of the dorms, which was another heartbreak for me. But luckily, I have family out in Sacramento. I had an auntie, kind of a distant auntie, who lived in a suburb about 20 minutes away from campus. And I eventually moved in with her. I was in this one little room. Bless her heart, she did not charge me a single dollar, and she always tried to look out for me as best as possible, even though she barely knew me. Um, but being in that setting, having that dorm life taken away from me, being isolated from my family, and not feeling passionate about my major, I fell back into a really bad depression. I wouldn't go to school. I was telling my family I was fine, but in reality, I was sitting in my room every day, just sitting there, really just kind of sitting in my depression. And I would say at this point, I kind of hit rock bottom. But they always say once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So that's exactly how I had to look at it, even though during the time I felt like there was no way out. And I remember in March of 2016, it was my dad's birthday. And then the day after, I actually found out my uncle was in the hospital. And I was sitting in my room, of course, crying. And I said, Arlyne, you're so stupid. You wanted to be so far away from home. And now the only thing you want right now is to go back home. So literally that day, I took a bus to school. I went to admissions and records, and I withdrew from all my classes. I didn't tell anyone, but I feel like this decision was kind of made when I was in orientation. I just didn't have the guts to make that actual, to like to act on it until that time. So I withdrew. I packed up a little bag and I took the first bus from Sacramento back to San Francisco. And I called my family, and they were, of course, saying, "What the hell? Is everything okay?" And I told them, I was like, I just needed to come home. So I came home. And so this was March of 2016. I came home. I enrolled into Skyline College as I believe I was a general bio major. That was for fall 2016. And I had a little bit of a gap time. Again, I went back to my therapist and I saw her. That was actually the last time I saw her was when I came back from Sacramento. Um, and she wanted me to transition to an adult therapist, but eventually I didn't. I kind of ended my therapy right then and there. It was kind of just another door that I shut, and I enrolled into Skyline for fall. But for the time being, I was working at a small pizza place, just gaining some money, kind of establishing myself again, getting back on my feet, and really working on myself. I think that 6 month break that I had really allowed me to realize a lot of things that I wouldn't have realized without that break. Um, and by the time fall came around for school, I actually got a new job at Dick's Sporting Goods in Daly City. That's a team picture right there from like a Thanksgiving one year. I was working full time there, earning a lot of, well, what I thought was a lot of money at the time. Um, and I was basically full time there. Then comes fall 2016. Like I said, I was working a lot. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with school. I was kind of enrolling in classes, withdrawing from classes, really confused, still not 100% me. I didn't feel passionate about what I was doing. And I really think it's because I wasn't utilizing the resources that I had. So fall 2016 was kind of a messy year for me, or a messy semester for me to try to figure out what I wanted. Then came spring 2017. I actually enrolled in the EMT program at Skyline. I thought this was the perfect segue from nursing into a different major that sounded a little bit more kind of like the best of both worlds. I thought I still wanted that direct patient contact, as well as I love the human body. I love learning about the body. So I thought this would have been it. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me. I just wasn't passionate about it. I was not feeling it. And it's nothing against the program at Skyline. It was nothing against any of the instructors. It was just literally, this wasn't me. It wasn't for me. And I eventually withdrew from that. So fall 2017, I started taking more general education classes for biology. The quote unquote plan was for me to transfer to a state eventually. I would have to do a bunch of biology classes, chemistry classes, this, that, all this fun stuff. But I also decided in fall 2017 that my work at Dick's Sporting Goods was taking up too much of my life. I was too exhausted. I wasn't focusing on school, and my siblings kept telling me, you think you're earning a lot of money, but you're really not. And they're like, you need to put school first. So I eventually, I got a job on a food truck called Bonito Poke. It was a really small food truck, but I loved it. We went all around the Bay. I actually worked with them until my most recent job. So I was with Bonito for about 3 years. I'm still really close to the manager. It was a great opportunity for me to just be able to be out, but also be earning the right wage. Now I would say it was summer 2018. I was doing a general prereq bio class. When someone came in and actually talked about the biotechnology program at Skyline that's offered. And she passed out the flyer that I'm sure a lot of you have seen that has like the program timeline, all the classes you take. And I stared at that flyer and I was like, I took like all these classes. I need like maybe chemistry, stats, and then of course the biotech classes. And I was like, why don't you just do this? And I stared at that paper for a while and I was like, pretty sure this is what I'm gonna do. So my plan was, I thought the maximum I could do was a biotech associate's degree. So I was gonna do my original biology degree, get a bachelor's in biology from a state, but as well as that, I would continue my associates in biotech at Skyline. So that was my plan at the time, like a rough plan that I had. And then fall 2018 came, and of course, some more hardships came, things happened. The end of July, beginning of August of 2018, my cousin lost her battle to cancer. And about a day or two later, I lost my uncle. So that was a really tough time for me. I buried my cousin one day, buried my uncle another day, and I basically started the next school semester the week after. So definitely not the best footing to start a semester on. And this is when I was going to be doing chemistry 210, general chem 1. And I haven't taken chemistry since sophomore year of high school. So it's been some time. And I was sitting in chemistry. I was trying my hardest, but I really just couldn't. I think I just wasn't prepared because of that loss of my cousin and my uncle. It was really hard for me to focus in class. So I eventually withdrew from chemistry. And I told myself, okay, in spring 2019, you're going to take Chem 192 to prepare yourself. And that following fall, you would do Chem 210. So that way I had a more solid foundation and I would actually be sure that I would pass chemistry. So fall 2019 came. And I remember I was due for another student success plan. So I had to go meet with a counselor again. And I was scared. I was so scared because I was thinking they're going to tell me I need another 3 years at Skyline. You're not graduating anytime soon. Blah, 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 blah. You need 5 more bio classes. You need physics, whatever. And I did a drop-in meeting. And by some grace of God, I was actually paired with Jenny, which is the designated biotech counselor. This is completely coincidental that I got paired with her. But I do believe that things happen for a reason. So Jenny sat me down and she kind of said, tell me about yourself, what you want to do. And I told her about this messy plan that I had where I would get a bachelor's in biology from a state and continue my associates in biotech at Skyline. And she was like, no, there's no need for that. There's a program that we have now where you can transfer to Solano and you would get your bachelor's there. And I was like, well, what? That's possible. And for once, I felt like the stars were kind of aligning and I felt like I actually had a plan that wasn't so shaky. And I had a counselor that told me like, I wouldn't be at Skyline for another 3 years. I'd be done by next semester. So we basically took my entire fall schedule and scrapped it. And I enrolled, it was like a week left for the deadline for adding and dropping classes. And I added, it was 3 biotech classes as well as Gen Chem 1. And I was officially a biotech major at this time. I took the 2 years of the biotech classes and I condensed them into 1 year. And I was also working at this time. So I was just kind of juggling a lot, but with the kind of life that I've always lived, I was always working, I was always involved in the community, I was doing this, I was doing that. But for the first time, I felt like the things that we were doing in the biotech class, I was like, this is what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. I love being in the lab. I love the research side. The quality control, quality assurance side, not so much, but it's definitely something to consider. We went to really cool things like the Cultured Meat Symposium in November. We learned about like lab engineered steaks and fish and like just really cool stuff. I was just, for once, I actually felt like passionate about what I was learning and what I was doing. So it was really exciting. And it was also encouraging to hear that I have a graduation deadline now. And that alone, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish. So spring 2020. Okay, this picture that I've included, I know I don't look very happy, but it's only because Professor Cap always made us take pictures with all our stuff. And this is the last picture we have in lab, but all of us were like, we're not going to smile in this picture. So all of us had our picture like that. But I promise I had a lot of fun in the lab. Anyway, so spring 2020 came. I met with Jenny to do my grad application. This is the first time I talked about moving out to Vacaville, because it's about an hour and a half commute one way, give or take with traffic. And my classes would be 4 times a week if I went to Solano. So I really talked about moving out. And I was kind of somewhat triggered again because the first time that I tried to move out with college, it didn't work very well with my Sac State experience. So I was kind of scared. But for this time, I really felt stable financially, mentally, physically. I felt ready. So moving out was actually an option that I was considering. And spring 2020, although it was my last semester, it was probably my heaviest semester. I was taking 19 units. I did cell bio, which is, I believe, bio 230. I was doing biotech 170, as long as the biotech 170 lab portion. I was also doing biotech 220, which is cell culture, which is where that picture's from. We grew our own cell cultures, which I thought is super cool. I was doing also like a fitness class, which was like one of my last PE prereqs, and I was also doing stats. So I had a full load, and I was also working at this time. So I would work in the morning from 7 a.m. to about 9 a.m. I would go home, shower, pack my lunch, go to campus, and I'd be on campus from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I'd have like a 2.5 hour break where I would do all my homework, or I would nap, or I'd eat. I slept in my car a lot, and that was kind of my Monday through Wednesday schedule. Thursday I had one night class, and then Friday I had a 12 p.m. lecture. So it kind of tapered off. But yeah, it was a very busy time. I also applied to Solano during this time, and then COVID hit, and we were forced to do distance learning, which kind of sucked. I love the lab. I was supposed to be in 3 lab classes, and then you kind of go into just purely lecture and like data analytics basically. That's kind of what the dynamic turned into for distance learning. And I also wasn't working on the food truck because since we weren't an actual restaurant, there was no way for us to do takeout because people literally line up right outside and that's a group setting. So I wasn't working. But regardless, this semester, given the circumstances, I excelled. And for the first time, I got Dean's List. I got a 3.7 GPA, and I graduated. So this was my graduation in a pandemic setting. My friends had to crop themselves into my graduation pictures. I borrowed my best friend's degree as well as her cap and gown so I could take my grad pictures because we didn't really have a ceremony. Looking back at it now, it's just really funny. I was kind of sad at first, of course, because I wanted to share this moment with my family. We had all these plans to go to a nice dinner, but I mean, you make the best of the situation. That's kind of all we could do during this time. So these are just some of my friends. They crop themselves into this picture. And I just love it at this point. It's just really funny now. So summer 2020 was when I officially got my acceptance letter into the Solano program. This was what they sent me. And I had my orientation on July 17th. Once again, I was a new kid, the only transfer student, and it was a cohort of like maybe 40 of us. I believe we're the only, like the 3rd or 4th cohort to do this program. So it was pretty intimidating. I was really scared. I don't know any of these people, but honestly, they're all very welcoming. I remember we went around and introduced ourselves in our orientation and my voice was shaking, but all of them were just so sweet. They were so welcoming. My professors are very helpful. We have a Discord channel with all the students. So we're able to communicate, and surprisingly, I've made some friends because I have the exact same schedule as some of these people, because Solano gives basically a program timeline that you could follow, or you can kind of pick and choose your classes, but I just chose to stay with what they recommended for each semester. So for fall 2020, these were my 4 classes that I was enrolled. This is for 15 units. So Biotech 401, Biomanufacturing Process and Engineer Principles. This was a very like chemistry-based class, and with like the experience I had with chemistry and how many times I had to like withdraw, take it, go into 192, all this stuff, I was kind of scared. Um, but my professor, her name is Dr. Golner Sandin. She's brilliant. She has a PhD in biomedical engineering. She has 2 masters in nuclear physics, as well as a bachelor's in physics. She's brilliant. If you ever had Professor Case, she's like that kind of intimidating, brilliant, but also like she's very helpful, just like Professor Case. She's willing to work with you if you just ask for help. Biotech 407 is taught by Professor DeClo. He has a degree in biology and biological sciences from UCLA. He teaches more of the regulatory sides, which is a little bit drier. It's not as fun, I will admit. For me, I don't enjoy it as much, but it is very important in this industry. English 400 was advanced technical writing, so you learn how to write professional technical reports, as well as like simple things like um, formal emails, memos, things like that. And then my elective, you have to do an elective every semester with this program. And I chose to do mammalian cell culture for my first elective because for Solano, they do offer a certificate program where if you do, there's 3 electives that you take. It's mammalian cell culture, synthetic biology, and algae biotech, as well as stem cell and cell-based technology. And if you do those 3 electives, you get a stem cell and gene therapy certificate. So it's something to just tack on. So I was like, I might as well just tack it on while I'm here. So this was my fall 2020 semester. I, again, was not working. I was on unemployment this whole time. And I told myself, Arlyne, you're not doing anything. You're at home. You have no reason to fail or push things off. You better finish school. And having that to motivate me, I was able to get my first 4.0 ever. So I got a 4.0 this semester. And actually during finals week, I started interviewing for companies because I, like a true science fiend, I was itching to be back in the lab. I missed lab. I actually met with Professor Cap and I was emailing Dr. Folsom saying, hey, do you think this is the right choice for me? Do you think I could do it? I needed to be back in a lab. So I applied to like 12 places, even for places that I didn't qualify for. I applied, I put my resume out, I put my name out there, I polished up my LinkedIn, I did everything I could, and I eventually did get hired. And it's this company called Avellino Labs in Menlo Park. I'm a laboratory accessioner, and I help process COVID samples, as well as I do quality control for the sheets that we submit for those samples to go to lab. I really just needed that experience back on my resume since I wasn't in like a lab setting or anything, with it being distance learning. So I really just needed something. And also the amount of money I was getting on unemployment just was not sustainable for me. So I really just had to push myself out of my comfort zone. And this was really the big job where I felt like I put on my big girl pants and I did it by myself. So I got hired at Avellino. I'm still currently working there and I love my team. I love what we do. I love that I can be a part again with my community to give back. We do testing for skilled nursing facilities. And it's just a great experience to have during this crazy, crazy time. I kind of just made the best out of the situation because without COVID, I most likely wouldn't have gotten hired here in the first place. But yeah, that's Avellino. And this is my current schedule that I'm in right now. I'm on spring break right now, so that's why I was able to do this talk today. But this is my classes that I'm enrolled in. So Biotech 402, which is design of experiments. It's using a lot of stats to look at the parameters of like a bioreactor. Biotech 403, which is design of facilities and utilities. This is a little bit more of the regulatory side. It's also an 8 a.m. class, so it's a really hard class to attend and stay focused in. But again, very important stuff. Biotech 404, which is bioprocess monitor and control. This, we look at the diagrams of the industry, all your control systems, making sure that things are running the way they're supposed to. And then because Solano is still closed, they're not offering any of the lab electives that I listed for my certificate. So right now I'm just in a management leadership skills elective class to kind of just continue my leadership, I guess, like career that I have, and just like polish up on those skills. It looks really good on a resume. Um, and that's basically where I'm at so far. I just want to say thank you for having me, and I'm open to any and all questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing so much about your educational journey and your experiences. So I'm going to give it some time for some folks to kind of populate the chat. I think your story was just so enthralling that there were no questions that showed up during your presentation, but I'll give it some time.
Yeah, definitely.
I do see one that just popped up. Does Solano College offer internship opportunities for its students? Are you aware of any?
I do know, I don't believe we have any direct partnerships, but a lot of my professors are involved with the industry. Like Professor DeClos, he did work at Genentech at one point. And one of the companies that I actually interviewed for was called Twist Bioscience. And when they asked me how I heard about the company, it was through Professor DeClos, and they were like, wow, we'd love to take you, just purely based off of hearing Professor DeClos' name. Unfortunately, I had to turn down Twist Bioscience because they wanted a full-time worker. Maybe in the future, they're looking forward to hearing back from me when I finish Solano. They completely understand the commitment and everything because it's full-time. But there's definitely a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of my classmates as well that are currently working in the industry. There's a huge Genentech plant right across from the Vacaville campus that a few of my coworkers are actively working at. I have classmates that also work at Biorad and a couple other companies throughout the Bay.
Thank you, thank you. This one comes from Dr. Cap. Do you have to take any upper division GE classes for this bachelor's degree?
I believe it was English the first semester. And then honestly, I haven't looked at any of the other ones. Oh, I know there's bioethics. There's a bioethics class. And there's one other, oh, and a business like 400 class where you have to talk about like sales pitches for your company, like you own a biotech company and basically like creating, I see them talking in Discord sometimes about like the homeworks and stuff. And I'm like, I don't have to worry about that yet. So I'm not gonna look at it. But those are just a few of the upper division GEs that I know of at least.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. So we have some more questions coming in. Did you say you started out with an associate degree with biotechnology? If so, do you have any resources that you'd like to share with the audience?
So I graduated from Skyline with a biotech, I believe it's the Biotechnology Laboratory Assistant degree. That's what's on my degree, as well as it was another general bio degree. So I technically have 2 associates. And then I'll be finishing my bachelor's, which is officially in biomanufacturing.
Thank you, thank you. Another question coming in. What do you plan on doing after graduating from Solano?
So there's actually a lot of opportunities out there, and I feel like I'm really blessed to be living where I am. I live in Daly City, if you guys didn't know. And like I said, I was raised in South San Francisco, the like birthplace of biotech. A lot of the places that I interviewed for in December, I was looking for a manufacturing technician job. But like I said, a lot of them were full-time opportunities that I couldn't commit to. They were 12-hour shifts, and I had class like 8 a.m. and then another class at 10 a.m. It was just a little too much. Whereas with Avellino, they're very flexible with my schedule. So I definitely want to be in the manufacturing realm. As for the company, I'm not 100% sure. I am kind of sad because A few weeks ago, I did get an offer from Genentech as a manufacturing associate position, and I sadly had to decline because, again, it was full time and I wanted to cry really bad. I told Dr. Cap about it and I told my boyfriend, but my boyfriend was like, think about when you finish school. If you're getting the opportunity now, you'll definitely get it when you finish. So just finish and you'll also earn more money. So
Very true, very true. Best of luck to you on that, definitely.
thank
Another
you.
question coming in. Do you have any tips for students applying for internships and other research opportunities, just based off of your experience?
My experience, I would just, even if you don't feel like you qualify, just apply. Just put your name out there. Try your best. I'm a very average student. Like high school, I was very average. College, like I said, I got my first 4.0 last semester, and I really think it's, I mean, I didn't have an excuse. I wasn't working. So I had no excuse but to not get a 4.0 or really high up there. But just keep trying, keep putting your name out there. Talk to people too. When I talk to my coworkers, it's funny because a lot of them graduated in like molecular bio, biochemistry. And when I ask them like what they want to do, they're like, oh, I want to work at a biotech company. And in my head, I'm like, a lot of people just don't know that these biotech opportunities, like a degree in biotech, exist. And I'm not doubting, their biochem degree or anything. That's great what they did. But I think it's just crazy that you can find a lot just through networking. So just definitely put yourself out there. With me also, I think it was best for me to, I told myself when I left Benito that my next job after would be aligned with my career. And I wanted to do that on purpose because I knew I'd be finishing soon. And by putting myself in just a lab setting, you get to know a lot of people and a lot of resources for you to use.
Thank you. Thank you for the insight. So we have another question coming in. So I have been looking, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. I've been looking more at biotechnology certificates, but this participant says, but I'm not sure I'm smart enough. Chemistry doesn't click, and I'm terrified of physics. I want to be able to help people though. Is this the right direction for me, in your opinion?
100%. I mean, I had my doubts. I had to step back and take 192 from chemistry, for chemistry, and then take 210. It, I would say, is really talking to your professors, getting to know them, and also showing that you're even just involved in class, that you're willing to work for your grade. Like that shows a lot for your professors. Technically, even when I took 210, even though I took 192, I failed my final. I'll be completely honest. I failed my final. I had what's his name? AJ, right? I believe is his name. Yeah, I had him. He's a great teacher, and I liked chemistry when I understood it, but I struggled. I struggled a lot. And when I checked my Canvas grade, since I failed my final, I had a D on Canvas. And I was like, I have to retake chemistry. I'm going to have to. But when grades came out, I got a C in the class. And I think it's because I showed up to lecture all the time. I gave an effort. And even though I wasn't the smartest and it didn't always click for me, I tried and I ended up here somehow.
Yeah, and I'm also going to just do the shameless plug-in to piggyback off of that advice. Right, there are plenty of resources on campus. If you're if chemistry and physics, math is not your forte, there are preparatory programs that really kind of value that effort. So I'm just going to shamelessly plug that in.
No,
and also highlighting Dr. Cap and Professor Folsom, kind of typing it in the chat, all the resources and the opportunities that are available. I highly encourage all of you to kind of look through those links and resources. But I'd like to move on to the next question here. Are you planning on getting a higher education degree after the bachelor's, maybe a master's, PhD?
So I've definitely considered it. Solano does actually have a program that they recently announced with Jefferson University in, I believe it's Philadelphia, for you to get your master's. I can't remember exactly what it was your master's in. I want to say it's like stem cell and gene therapy. I've definitely considered. As for right now, I want to just focus on one thing at a time. It's definitely a thought in my head though. And Professor Declos, he's he's put it out there. We've even asked Professor Sandin, because she has two masters in nuclear physics, do we think, or does she see the value in having a master's? And she told us, you can't speak for everyone's experience when pursuing higher education like that, but she doesn't regret it. So you can take that how you want. It's really, I know there's also scholarship and grant opportunities that Solano offers through this program. It's definitely something I've considered, but right now my main focus is just to finish my bachelor's and then kind of see where I want to go with that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So the next question, if you get your associate degree in biotech and want to go back to school to get your bachelor's, how would you go about this route?
I would definitely say get in touch with Dr. Cap, Dr. Folsom, probably Jenny. I'm assuming Jenny's still there. And then as well as get in touch with Dr. Sandin, who's the director of the program at Solano. Because even when we register for classes, since our program's a little bit different, we get restrictions and holds on our registration. So basically, she has to field and make sure and approve each of us individually to make sure that this is the correct sequence she wants us to do. So I would definitely say getting in touch with Dr. Sandin, and she would get you in touch with whatever resource you needed, whether that was admission and records. Because mine was a little bit different since I was transferring from Skyline to Solano. I had to do a little bit more steps to get me enrolled at Solano and get my classes done. But of course, because there's only about 30 of us in each cohort, and the classes aren't going to fill up. They're basically whoever they take in during fall admissions, they have space for them for classes.
Thank you. Thank you. So next question. This one is about balancing work and school. So if you could do it all over again, would you still work while going to school, or would you sacrifice work for school?
So I would say I mostly work in order to provide for myself. I come from a middle to low class family. My parents are divorced, and my mom didn't help too much financially. My dad works all the time. He's a hardworking man. My brothers also taught me the value of money because they started working really young. I did get that little taste of what it's like to not work and go to school when I was on unemployment, and I was still getting a paycheck. And I was going to school, and again, I made the most of it by really just focusing on school, and that's when I got my highest GPA. So I would say I mostly worked in order to provide for myself. It was nice to not work for a little bit, but me being me, the way I work, I like to constantly stay busy. I like having a jam-packed schedule while I still can, while I'm still able to, because I'm still young. When I'm older, then I can relax. But for now, if there's a chance to make money, stay busy, make myself better, I would take that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've actually reached the end of the questions that have appeared in the chat, either through direct messages or of ones that everyone can see. But I do recommend kind of Arlyne, when you have a chance to kind of save the chat and scroll through it, there's a lot of feedback, a lot of thank yous and congratulations. Looks like you had a fellow Elko classmate back in your high school days. So
full pride.
Small world. But I'll throw in one quick question, just to give some time for some other folks to pose any questions if they'd like. Reflecting back on your total educational journey, kind of going back to the very beginning, if there was one piece of advice that you would give to your past self, what would that be?
So I would say one thing I learned a lot, especially when I was kind of transitioning through all my transitional points. I learned to not resist change. If things are happening, they're happening for a specific reason, whether that's, if you believe in God, you can say that it's because of God's will. If you believe in just the universe, it's because of the universe. I think the way that the stars aligned for me and the way things fell in place was because I stopped resisting change and I welcomed it. If I was to, do one thing and then hit a wall, it was because that way wasn't supposed to happen. So even with all the hardships, me withdrawing, me changing to this, me going from here to there, me thinking about moving out, COVID happening, it all happens for a reason. And I really think making the best of the opportunities that you still get during these times and just welcoming change is something that is beneficial to learn at a young age.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated that. And really kind of, looking back over your journey, it seemed like you were really kind of aware of who you are and what you wanted to do. And so that notion of, stars aligning is a slight feedback mechanism where it's like, if you know yourself well enough,
Yep.
you know exactly what you should be going after.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually really, really inspiring. Definitely something that I can definitely kind of pull from. And then we do have one more question that just popped in. Out of curiosity, can you describe a typical day in your current job? I'm interested in to hear how you work with COVID samples and quality control.
100%. Yeah. So my work, we process samples from skilled nursing facilities. So basically, a package would come in from a specific site that would go to our material handling room where it would be unboxed, sanitized, and those singular vials, it's now a batch, and that would be sent to our office. And in that office, we have a bunch of computers, a bunch of accessioners. And what we would do is we have a web portal which contains all the patient information. And each individual vial has a barcode and a COVID number associated with it, as well as the patient name. We would scan that vial and the patient information would come up. And we would take that patient information and put it onto a thing called a submission sheet, which is basically, it's a template that my company has on an Excel sheet. And we would accession that entire batch. So all of those files all those vials would be on that one Excel sheet. And that Excel sheet contains patient information such as their address, their gender, birthday, certain things. And each batch has to be with that submission sheet before it goes to lab. So that way we have patient contact information. And before that sheet goes to lab, that sheet actually has to be quality controlled by someone else that didn't make that sheet. So for me, I actually enjoy doing quality control. I know I talked a bunch of crap about it, about quality assurance and quality control. I never enjoyed it, but I actually enjoy doing quality control more in my current job. But we quality control those sheets, and then those sheets go to lab, and then they get processed through lab, and the patient will get their results in a few hours. And that's kind of it.
Wow. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's pretty chill.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions kind of pop up into the chat. So I think I'll just end it here if there's nothing else coming through. But wanted to thank Arlyne, you again so much for spending your precious time off during your precious spring break.
No worries.
But really appreciated your journey, your insights, your advice for all of us that are on the call. Wanted to kind of remind everyone on the call as well, all the participants, that we do hold Science in Action every Tuesday, 4:30 to 5:30 right here on this link. We do also record this, so this is accessible if you missed any portion of it on our YouTube playlists. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, the meeting link is also available in the description below. But Arlyne, thank you again so much for your time with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me to hear about my story. Just keep trying your best, guys. What's meant to be will be.